Welcome back to Skillful Living and Artful Life. This is our first episode for the year, and the first guest that I have here is the lovely Danielle Ruttenberg. Did I say that correctly?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me.
Yes, she is one of the co-founders, one of three co-founders of Remark Glass and also Bottle Underground. So I just want to give a little background here about how we came together. I had been watching them on Instagram because I love businesses that find a way to advocate for the planet and still be able to make some money at it. Short and sweet that way, because I'm going to let her explain what it is that they do at Remark Glass and Bottle Underground. How are we doing today, Danielle?
Doing great. We're in Philadelphia, and so it's for all of you wonderful people out here the day after the Super Bowl. So everyone's got a good vibe around here. Go Birds! Very exciting.
That's right.
Lots of excited kiddos and people all around. So being part of Philadelphia for such a long time, it's just always is good to have something to celebrate.
Yes.
And yeah, um, yeah, yeah, everyone's in good spirits, which is awesome. And to give you a little background about Remark Glass, we were founded in 2016, and with the notion of finding creativity in using source materials that were outside of the normal scope of art glass. So using bottles and jars, we were exploring ways that material could be resourceful to us as young artists without a lot of resources to begin with. The medium that we have chosen is quite expensive. It's quite energy consumptive, and we wanted to see if there was some ways that we could skate around the notion of that energy and the mining of the raw silica to get to a material that is used in a lot of ways, and a lot of waste material that is put into our local landfills without taking advantage of the infinite recyclability that there is inherent in that material. So it was really an easy start to just design to this waste and see what was possible with it. And it really began with our own personal bottles that we had a little bit of, cherished to them. A wine bottle that was from an anniversary. These are things that I think people have an idea that saving it could be a nice thing because it has a little story to tell. And so we thought, why not create something that's functional in the home, and so it becomes a living memory.
Right.
And so kind of blending sustainability and sentimentality, we look to making these keepsake gifts that could be, again, something that's functional in your home and becomes then a part of your daily life instead of something sitting on the shelf and collecting dust.
Right. Right.
So that was the initial start. And after a little bit of time, we really saw that our community was invested in what we were doing and started bringing us glass to work with. Our neighbors in our building, which you had the fortune to visit, it was we were in a very cool mixed use adaptive reuse building called Bach in South Philadelphia, and our neighbors started bringing us glass and we knew we needed certain types of glass over other types of glass. And so we just started collecting and recognizing that the glass that we were bringing in, we could start to have a larger impact with the diverting it out of the waste stream and finding alternative uses for it.
Right. And how
So
did you get into blowing glass? Because this is an art form that we don't really see much anymore. I know that Rebecca used to do work with stained glass, right? And then her husband, you and he went to school together at the Tyler School of Art at Temple
yes,
University. Like,
yes.
this is an incredible journey to get to where you are now. Like, what made you think, oh, yeah, we're going to keep at this? We're going to keep at this very rare niche art form and then build on that and make this even bigger.
Yeah. So I did go to Tyler School of Art, which is one of there's not a ton of glass blowing programs in the country, but there are some, and Tyler did have one. And so my first exposure to glass blowing was there. And I found it pretty fascinating at the time, so I stuck with it. And after many years, I worked in different studios, I worked in galleries, and through different stages of being involved in the arts, and eventually started my own fabrication business, which was really working, like making my own art, but also working with other designers that couldn't necessarily fabricate their own wares in glass.
Right.
And because it's such a specialized skill, that was working for me for some time. And it really was at the turn, like at a life point when I was then married and thinking about raising a family, that Becky and I, alongside Mark, started talking about what we could really do together so that when, in the end of the day, we couldn't be doing all of the things and we wouldn't be completely thrown out of the industry that we loved.
Right.
So it was about collaboration. It was about being resourceful and finding ways to work together to keep ourselves employed the way that we wanted to be employed.
Great.
And I think that our ability to have empathy with one another and know that being a first-time mom is not a simple task, but giving ourselves that grace to kind of ebb and flow with what our capabilities and strengths were at a given time. I think that was a really unique and gentle way to start something together. Not saying it's easy. There's nothing easy about starting a business and having a
No,
family, but
no, but
but I
you all seem to have a very genuine bond in spending time with you. And thank you for being so gracious and carving out time for me to spend there. I really wanted to like feel and see what it is that you've created. And it's rare. It's rare.
I I think it is. I think you're right about that. I think that we have been very fortunate to kind of take it one step at a time. We're not a traditional business, and we entered into this with the notion that we could build something greater than ourselves if we work together.
Perfect. Really, it is. So you once you got a little bit bigger, that's when is that where Bottle Underground came into play? Because then you brought in lots of other facets in. You brought in
Mhm.
workforce and internships and working with recidivism. And so
Mhm.
you really created something even greater than just the three of you working together and blowing grass and repurposing glass and all of that. It really kind of just expanded. Can you give me a
Yeah,
little background on how that happened?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It let's see. Uh so to give a little framework, we were making glassware, bowls, tablewares, and lighting for a few years, and it was really we had really toyed with formalizing the drop off process and or starting to collect glass separately from individuals who were participating in our kind of grassroots collection system that had occurred. And it
Right.
wasn't until COVID hit that we really had to take hold of that in a more structured way. We did have members of the community reaching out, wanting to still be active in our program. And at the same time, we were seeing more clearly the flaws of the waste system in our community. And that meant people not trusting the system that was in place. So it gave us really a moment to say we know we can solve this in a small way and start something that will allow people an alternative that they can feel good about. Whether that's composting a little bit in their free time or trying to take hard to recycle materials to different sites to find options for them, which is what we're doing. I think that for certain people, it felt like an action they could do. And so Bottle Underground, we founded July of 2020 is really when we filed all of our paperwork for the 501c3. And we had really started integrating, we're talking about hiring practices when we started the business, and always wanting to make sure that we were extraordinarily fair with the people that we brought into our team. And so it was that same year, I think, that we decided to work with Fair Chance Hire, which is the city of Philadelphia's program for justice impacted folk coming back into daily life and finding work. Fast forward, we started in that, and then eventually partnered with New Leash on Life, which is another program in Philadelphia, and nationwide. They've got some other sites as well, that is working with men and women while they are incarcerated, giving them opportunities to work with dogs, totally outside of what we do, but to train dogs that were at risk and pair them with an animal that would otherwise be put down. And by going through that training and giving a new life and opportunity to an animal, are going through a training themselves. And it's a really beautiful program. Interns are placed with us. They can choose to come and be on site with us for a number of weeks after they are released. And then we are able to place a number of them into full-time employment with us, depending on who comes out of the program. So it's been a really nice partnership. We have a lot of opportunities that are kind of throughout the different departments that we have accrued. And I know I kind of skipped ahead, but
no, that's okay.
What Bottle Underground has really done is developed. We have our community recycling program, where community members are either dropping off, or we have our team members going out on e-bikes to pick up from them. So that's kind of one of our entry point job placements. Either the couriers or the collections up at our loading dock area. And then our studio, obviously, we're making a lot of stuff. And for people who are interested in working with their hands and navigating a more craft-based career, we are placing there as well. And then also in our fulfillment and customer service factions, there's definitely a lot to do. So it's been really wonderful to kind of really have a true diverse picture of what the city of Philadelphia looks like in a small workplace.
Well, and you've got a nice amount of space down there because you're in the basement. So you've got, which I've got footage of, so folks will be able to see that. I'll be weaving it in the shorts and the reels on social media. And one of the things that you would also talk to me about is how you have partnered with different corporate brands in repurposing some of their glass. And then you're doing kind of like private work with them as well, which is kind of another stream of income. Because when I first thought about all this glass, I was like, well, how do all these corporations feel about you repurposing their glass? And it's like, well, you purchased it. You own it, right? Once you buy a bottle of something, it becomes your possession. But it was nice to hear that you're doing this corporate co-branding. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It's honestly not dissimilar from the keepsake process that I mentioned before, where we might be taking a bottle from somebody's wedding or a special occasion and reforming that material into something that's usable with Maker's Mark or Coca-Cola. We might have a partnership in which the brand is sponsoring the collections of that material from a waste standpoint. And then we are melting it down or shifting, again, like reshaping the material to become something that can be brought back into the brand's corporate gifting or for client gifts, whatever it might be, or even resold on their own websites or in their stores.
Right.
So it is an opportunity. It's an opportunity in two ways. And for those larger brands, it's an opportunity for them to tell a story with the waste that is coming out of their products. I don't foresee a very near future in which extended producer responsibility is something that we're really looking at in our
Sure.
systems, given the political climate at the moment. But I do
Never
know that
know.
you never know. I do have the fortune of experiencing brands and the people within the brands who are dedicated to the goals that are important to them, whether that's environmental or social. They are seeking out ways that they can bring that to light. And I know that there's definitely an element of greenwashing for some companies to select a process like this. But we're pretty discerning in the people that we work with. And I do think in the end of the day, a corporation's built of a lot of people.
Sure.
And what's important mostly to me is the people that are within that and how they are affecting change in the ways that they can. So I think those partnerships are really valuable. I think that the messaging and storytelling that we're able to do with the reinvention of a glass from,
Exactly.
a juice bottle,
Right.
um, is a really unique and special opportunity. And so I love to do it, and I love to speak to the people who are excited to do that as well.
Yeah. That's great. And so, how many people do you think you have on rotation that kind of stay with you, learn skills like maybe glass blowing? I met some folks when I came to visit you they were cleaning glass, they were bringing glass in. And was it Carmichael or Connor? Which one?
I think you met Connor. Yeah.
Connor. Okay. So he was working
Hmm.
in the kiln and it was very cool to watch everything, the way that he was reforming the glass.
Hmm.
I would love to do that. I'd probably burn myself though, to be honest. I would probably
It
hurt
takes some time.
It would take me probably quite a bit of time to learn how to do that. But how many people would you say percentage-wise of the people that you're bringing in through the program and the partnerships, workforce and otherwise? And I think do you have high school students too that come in eventually?
So we do a couple of different internship programs, and there's youth that comes in through summer programming that sometimes it's a good fit for them to stay throughout the year,
Right,
on due weekends or whatever that might be.
right,
Um, we are a really small team, so it's not exactly about the overall numbers, but like the percentage. And I think that right now our team is probably split down the middle between um, an affected past versus not. People with lived experience in terms of justice impaction um, and youth that haven't had the best opportunities in
right,
their upbringing. So that being said, we have other staff members that I don't know, everyone comes from such a different past that I can't really say that it's like 50-50 of
right.
anything, but
You
in
haven't
terms of the program placement,
Yeah,
it's definitely
yeah,
like it's about a 50-50 split right
got it.
now of whether we hire directly through let's say normalized hiring channels or through internship programming.
Right. And so one of the things that Becky and I were talking about when you had stepped out to help a client, we were talking about this really being about a circular economy, you know,
Mhm.
and sustainable economy that you're creating there with all of the moving parts within the city of Philadelphia,
Mhm.
and um, I don't know that everybody can understand that. How would you explain it? Like nuts and bolts. How does that? Because when she was saying it to me, I was like, "Oh, I wish I were recording this," because she was so, she was firing away very quickly because she knows what she's talking about, and
Mhm.
you're all very cohesive in what you do. But if you could speak to that, that would be
Mhm.
great.
Yeah. let me break that down in kind of a simple way. Let's follow the story of a bottle. If somebody were to purchase we've already talked about Coca-Cola today. I'm not like a Coca-Cola advocate, but you purchase a soda at the store and you drink the soda, and that soda now you have an empty glass bottle. That empty glass bottle has value. The value is either going into if you're in Philadelphia and you take the time to put it into your recycling bin, it does go into a recycling service that inevitably ends up as alternate daily landfill cover. It's not remelted. It's used in another way, but it's kind of got a near end life.
Right.
If our alternative is taking the value of that bottle and increasing the overall value by changing its shape. Okay. Now you have something that was worth fractions of a penny that we might be able to sell for, let's say it's a cup. We've turned it into a cup like this one. This is in fact a Santa Cruz juice bottle that has been turned into a cup. So we sell this for, let's call it $20. There's sales tax in the city of Philadelphia. We've got jobs that help to sort the material that brought this material to a place where it could have more value. And then somebody purchases that, and the sales tax goes through, and the jobs are paid for, and the less than 1 cent piece of glass is now creating work and putting money back into the economy. And it's not just circular, but what's also really important for me is local and circular, because you can't develop systems like this without thinking about local waste systems,
Right.
and where the material is going.
And you actually, when you shop locally, you're actually creating even more wealth within the local community when you keep it
Yes.
local.
Indeed. Yeah.
Increases, which is great.
And not everything is manufactured initially. Like I'm not sure where this glass was, or the glass bottle was originally produced.
Right.
But in the ecosystem and of that, it has come to inevitably exist now.
Right.
How do we make more value out of the things that we already have?
Right.
And keep that wheel kind of moving.
Yeah. And it's functional.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are things that you're going to use. You're going to use a glass to drink something out of, right? You're going to use a decanter if you like wine. There's some beautiful decanters there, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for my bowl. Thank you for my bowl. I love that bowl. I was using it last night, and I was like, I'm going to see her tomorrow. It's
so nice.
a prized possession now. Thank you. Well, so that I'm glad you were able to explain that to all of us, because I think it's real. You know, sometimes people talk about it in the abstract, and you're like, can you make that real for me?
Yeah,
this is very real.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that it's actually almost easier to explain from the opposite side, that single
Right.
use is in fact single use. If you were to go select a plastic bottle or a paper bottle, you drink the contents, you throw that thing away. And plastics, that's a whole other conversation. But yes, is there some element of recycling happening there? Sure. Is that thing completely gone? Is there some element of circularity? Yes, we can make that argument 100%. But
Sure.
is it the best use? I'm not sure. Is it best for us? I'm not here to say that one way or the other. But I do like drinking out of glass a little bit more than I like drinking out of plastic.
Yeah, that's a different conversation. Okay.
Indeed.
Yes. So there are a couple of things that are coming up. There's one, we'll talk about the glass sand, because glass does originate from sand.
Silica.
Right?
Yeah.
Silica, right? And so I had noticed you had collaborated with Terra Luna. I'd seen this months ago. So we're all waiting for the tulips. These tulips it's a mixture of glass sand, right? And actual soil, right? Did she do that? Did she mix of them?
So we are producing glass sand, which is any of our surplus glass that isn't being used in our facility or being sent back for bottle to bottle manufacturing is ground down into a lighter aggregate and is effectively sand. For the reel that you're mentioning about Terra Luna, she took the sand and blended it in with the topsoil. I'm not a green thumb, so I know that there is definitely, an element to water filtration and aeration in the soil, and that's
Mhm.
how it's used. But that we are working with other partners to actually combine the sand and compost and biochar to make products that are pre-blended and ready to use on the market.
I would like to try and use that.
Yeah,
I'm very
it's
excited
it's
about it.
all launching very soon. And I think
Exciting.
that you got the opportunity to see some of we're doing a big kind
Yes.
of launch alongside the flower show. The Philadelphia Horticultural Society's
That
flower
was the
show is a
next thing
big
that I was gonna
deal.
talk about. So
Yeah, yeah, it's a
right.
big deal every year, and so there's an educational display that we are a part of, that is really leaning towards that glass sand and how it can be implemented in uh, a new way of gardening, and that's the theme of the year is the future of gardening, and so we're really excited to see how people beyond our local, I mean, I really want to see it. There's a ton of local urban farms. I think there's a real opportunity to get this just planted back into the ground and see how it can be used. Um,
Oh,
yeah. And
yeah.
it's because what's different about it, and we can look back at the recycling system that I just mentioned, that it is also being crushed down into an aggregate in that process. However, when you have it commingled with plastics, cardboard, so other things, it's not the cleanest. So for us to be able to plant and make vegetables, growing food that we want to eat, we do want to make sure that the soil that we are planting in is clean and free
Exactly.
of plastics.
So when is this show happening? Because we had talked about this while I was there.
Soon, I actually have to look at my calendar. No, I believe it's towards I think it opens in the end of the month and it's like the first week of March.
Oh, so it's the first week of March.
I think it's the first week of March.
Okay. Because I was
I'm peeking at my calendar right now because I should know that date off the top of my head, but I don't. Um, yeah, yeah, we're installing in the last week of February, so that looks like I think like the opening day is that the
yeah.
28th, and
I
like
took some
the
pictures.
VIP.
Yeah, I took some pictures of the all the stuff that was being made piece by piece, and then Mark and Becky were like, "No, that's too heavy. You can't put that on that." And I was just kind of sitting there listening because I don't know. I don't blow glass.
Yeah.
It looks heavy, but he was like, "Yeah, we're married. We go through this all the time." I was like, "Okay,
Should see when it's the three of us.
yeah." It's probably well. You and Mark went to school together, right?
Yes,
So
Mark
you,
and I did go to school together. At Tyler, and I think they're in the early 2000s. So,
Hmm,
different times, being
yeah,
in college is a whole different vibe.
yeah.
But
But it's nice to know that you're growing together. Like
yeah,
you knew each other in college, and here you are, and it's you, him, and his wife, and you're this trio. You know,
yeah,
it's a powerful number.
yeah, and we've been able to really find our swim lanes in that. Even though each of us comes from a creative background, I think that we all have different strengths outside of the creativity part. So we've been able to make it work. It's never easy. Nothing's ever easy, but I think that when you have a team that has a passion for we have a passion for what we do, and we really do want to see this effective change, and the beauty of the material was kind of always at the heart of it for us, and that was the connective tissue.
Yes, and that's a beautiful way to work together. That's a nice collaboration. It's inspirational, and that's that's one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you and have this conversation, because
Well,
I
thank
feel
you.
like if it's inspiring me, then it will probably inspire other people too.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope I honestly I I I hope it inspires people to think critically about the materials that we have, not just about where we traditionally have always gotten our source materials from. I think that the future of making, whether it's on a individual artist level all the way to manufacturing, really does we're at a critical moment where we need to think about those materials and where they're finite. So while we really looked at it initially as this opportunity to design differently, I think that we've posed a real pilot program that could be emulated and brought to a larger scale throughout the manufacturing world,
In
um,
an urban environment, you know what
and
I mean?
urban environments.
You
Absolutely, yeah.
created the perfect template for people to say, "Hey, let's do this in this part of Brooklyn. Let's do this in this
Hmm.
part of New Jersey. Let's do this in Connecticut. Let's do this in California." Like, this is definitely, you can replicate this.
You can,
You do
you
have
can,
the right
and it doesn't
people.
have. Yeah, sorry. I was going to say it doesn't have to be with, we're making functional glassware and decorative lighting, but and I think that that was the initial um notion of like the excess needing to be turned into something, and that the sand was a good solution for that, leads me on the path of there are other options for this material to not be wasted. It's just a little bit challenging to um, kind of tear down the walls of incumbent systems that have been in place for some time, of how waste material has been approached, and also the not just like the waste haulers, but the manufacturers themselves. There's a barrier in which they're looking at, the market rate for what recycled glass cullet has been all this time,
Mhm.
and how can we kind of reshape the model to be inclusive of the type of labor that we are experiencing as being beneficial to the entire ecosystem.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree with you. And we really can't afford to create that much more waste.
Yeah.
Like, we can't. I've done research on this. It's staggering, the amount of waste that's
Well,
created in this
yeah.
country and globally. It's just like, wow, that's a lot of garbage. And then I mean, it's not just glass either, or plastic. There's
Yeah. And in fact, glass is lower in terms of usage. If you were to visit any sort of local recycling plant, I think your cardboards and plastics are going to well outshine the glass content that you see come through.
You are absolutely
Um,
right. Yeah. I mean, think of, like, when you think about how many things that are made out of plastic, and that it's the first use. It's not even plastic that's been recycled for another use, you know?
mhm.
Yeah. I personally have been doing my best to, like, stay away, buy as little as possible. And then
Yeah.
also, if I could, I'd bring all my glass to you every week. I'm not that close to you.
No, it's hard, and I think that it's important for, I'm a parent of two little kids, and like we have to be realistic about the things that present us everyday challenges as human beings, and there's definitely conveniences that are going to be easier um, than doing our best, best or doing the best. So we do our best in our way, and I think that taking time to acknowledge the different products that might be available to us, um, even whether or not that's something that one can afford, also is a huge
That
barrier as
is
well. So I think that um, what is free is reuse, and I think that yeah, and I think that there's a notion of the reuse economy that we don't think about how that could be beneficial to everyone. So if if your pasta jar is coming in what looks like a traditional mason jar, you can wash it and use it again, and that's
Exactly.
free.
Yeah.
And I think that there's
Store your grains, store your
yeah,
beans. I do it. I do it as much as I can. Yeah.
yeah.
It's important. Well, thank you so much for taking your time and educating us. It's lovely.
I mean, I love what I do, and so I am excited to talk about it and be here to talk to you again. I feel like our conversation initially was so easy, and so
Yeah.
it's nice
It was like
to bring it all back
a candy shop.
up.
Look at
Good.
this. This is so exciting. What is this? What does that do? Yeah. And I mean, literally, I could probably, you could have me as an intern. I would happily, anybody that I've been interviewing, I'm like, I want to come and work with you for a while. Can I do that? You know?
Well, we have volunteer opportunities, and so anytime you
Good.
want to schedule or if you wanted to bring a group, we can definitely set that up. And that's kind of the beauty. Yeah, totally. I think that's the beauty of, having the dual organizations is that
Yes.
we are able to do programming that is bigger picture. And then,
Yeah.
yes, glassblowing is a super niche skill set, and it's not something that is an overnight. A lot of people who follow us are really interested in taking glassblowing classes. It's not something that we offer, but you can come and watch. But the reason we don't is because glassblowing is already difficult, and then recycled glassblowing is even a little bit more challenging in that the glass is a little stiffer and it cools quickly, and so the learning curve is a little longer. And so
Right. And you're
um
like masterful at it. So if you can run a business and teach people at the same time, you're like, I don't know, you're going to have to really practice on your own, kiddo, because we got stuff to do here. I mean,
and and we have built the business from scratch. We have never taken on any major sort of funding to build a state of the art studio. We've used what we had and rebuilt again. So it doesn't really give us the opportunity to, open that up to everyone.
how can
But
we help? How can we
oh,
help that happen besides buying product from you? How can the public help you increase your capacity so that you can do more of these kinds of things? Let's give us a call to action here.
call to action. I mean, um, well, obviously, volunteering and philanthropy are, if you're passionate about whether it's circularity, the environment, or social the social mission that we have that runs, I think, very beautifully alongside our environmental mission. Um, we're people, planet focused, and so if you have a family foundation or you are interested in donating money to us, that you can do a tax deductible donation at bottleunderground.org. Or you can reach out to any of us on our team and we can help to facilitate that. Or a volunteer day. We do have some awesome volunteer days with a lot of corporations that, again, might have an ESG model in place and are looking to give back to that
Great.
model as well.
Excellent. Right on.
Thank
Well,
you.
that's good. Yes. No, my pleasure. And I will be coming back to see you. And I would love to try and schedule a volunteer day, even though it's a little bit of a hike from here, but that's okay. I think it would be good for grown-ups to do this, not just kids. I
Yeah.
think it would be good for full-on grown-ups to remember what it's like to go and donate your time to a cause that is really doing something, not just filling their pockets,
Yeah.
with cash, which is also good because we need it. Um, until the bartering system comes back, this is what we
Well,
get. It's
you never
happening, I
know.
think. It still happens. It still happens, right?
Mm.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you to the whole crew there. Please give them my regards. and I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure talking to you. And come visit us if you're in the, Philadelphia area ever visiting. We're right in South Philadelphia, and we have wonderful things to see, and we love having visitors.
Yeah, Bach Building, the Bach Building. That's a story unto itself, that building,
It sure is. Yeah.
actually. Yes. Well, thank you and have a great evening. And I hope I get to make it to the show to see
Yes,
see
please.
the installation.
Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Have a good evening.
Take care of yourself.
Ciao, ciao.